Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tearing into a truly monumental Philippine Supreme Court decision from 1982, People versus Doble.
We are. And this case reviews just a brutal bank robbery from all the way back in 1966.
Right, in the Navotas, Rizal. A heavily armed band, 8 to 10 men?
At least. They targeted the Prudential Bank and Trust Company branch, which, and you have to remember this, operated from midnight to 8 a.m.
An overnight bank, essentially.
Exactly. And the crime itself, the violence was just extreme. The loot was only about 10,000 pesos, but 4 people were killed.
4 dead, including 3 peace officers, Sergeant Alcala, Sergeant Aguilos, and Corporal Evangelista.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive, to understand how the court sorted through this mess, who was a principal, who was an accomplice, and who walked free.
Okay, let's start there then, with the biggest surprise, Simeon Doble. The trial court actually sentenced him to death.
They did, but the Supreme Court affirmed the Solicitor General's recommendation for acquittal.
So how do you go from a death sentence to being acquitted? What happened?
It hinged entirely on what participation really means. Simeon's only proven involvement was, allowing the robbers to meet in his house.
Just letting them use his house.
That was it. It was near the boat landing they used. He didn't even go with them, apparently because of an old foot injury.
Yeah.
So the court found this was just mere knowledge.
Mere knowledge, acquiescence, or approval. That's the phrase they used.
Right. It was passive. It wasn't the kind of intentional participation you need to prove a criminal conspiracy. He provided the location, but not, an act in furtherance of the crime itself.
Fascinating. So let's shift to the 2 who were convicted, Cresencio Doble and Antonio Romaquin. Their main defense was that their confessions were inadmissible.
Yes. They claimed they were tortured. They described being boxed, hit with gun butts, and having some kind of peppery liquid forced on them.
And what did the court make of that?
Well, this is where we hit a really critical point of legal history, something that affects the rights you have today. The court dismissed the physical torture claims pretty quickly. They said there was no medical evidence, and a co-accused, Celso Aquino, testified freely. But the real defense, the one that matters, was the lack of a lawyer during their interrogation.
The right to counsel. That's a fundamental protection now.
It is now. But in 1966, that wasn't the case. The court ruled that they had to apply the legal standard from 1966, and back then, the right to counsel during a custodial interrogation wasn't a constitutional requirement.
Wow. So that right only came later.
Much later, with the 1973 Constitution. So because their statements were seen as voluntary under that old framework, their admissions were allowed to stand.
Okay, so their confessions are in, they admit their involvement, Cresencio got the boat, Antonio provided it. What did this mean for their actual sentences?
It meant their liability was significantly reduced. They were found guilty, but only as accomplices in robbery, not as principals.
And the distinction there is what?
It's about how essential their role was. The court saw their actions, providing the boat, as helpful but crucially not indispensable to the crime.
How could they tell?
The money trail helped. Antonio got about 441 pesos, which looks like a rental fee for the boat. And Cresencio only got 41 pesos from Antonio. That's not a share of the loot, It suggests they were paid for a service, not fully part of the band.
That makes sense. But 4 people died. The majority opinion limited their complicity only to the robbery itself.
Right. They ruled there was no proof of an agreement to kill. And that's the critical nuance here, the part that sparked a huge debate within the court.
So being an accomplice to the robbery didn't automatically make them an accomplice to the homicides?
According to the majority, no. But Justice Abad Santos filed this powerful dissenting and concurring opinion. He argued that, look, they knew the principals were heavily armed with Thompsons and carbines.
Right, military-grade weapons.
Exactly. He said it was impossible they were unaware of the plan to use violence, maybe even to kill, to knowingly give men armed for war a getaway boat. That, for him, is complicity in everything that follows. Robbery with homicide.
So in the end, Simeon Doble was acquitted and ordered released.
Walks free. And Cresencio Doble and Antonio Romaquin were convicted as accomplices in robbery and band. They got a sentence of about 5 to 8 years, plus indemnity to the heirs of the victims.
A very different outcome than a death sentence.
Completely. And the legal outcome hinged entirely on that one question. Could you prove these 2 men explicitly agreed to murder? Or, as Justice Santos argued, is supplying a boat to men armed with Thompson's complicity enough for every terrible outcome? That's the lasting legal question this deep dive leaves you with.